Life is such a blur. Email details, more stuff. My business is consuming me. Am I really living? When do I get to do what energizes me and enjoy the rewards? Welcome to your second life. All is now doing what you love and loving what you do. It's radical creativity. Here's your host, the VIP coach, John Davidson.
Wow. What an introduction. Wow. Man, I love those introductions. Radical creativity, folks. This is JD, the VIP coach. And I was looking at the number of shows that we've done so far. Man, we've done a lot of shows. We started as No Hype Allowed many, many years ago. Actually, we started No Hype Allowed in 2007. And I just want to say thank you to all of our listeners that have been devoted, loyal followers of this theme, No Hype Allowed. You know, I started No Hype Allowed because, well, I didn't want to see people be misled by all of the success technology out there. These human potential ideas about changing your beliefs, about positive thinking, which really, when you get down to it, looking at it from a systems standpoint, when you really look at it from the whole, it doesn't work. It's great for marketing. It's great for putting people in seminars. It's great for building up people who think they're losers and they can do something for the world. It's great for the self-esteem concerned people who think, well, if I don't love myself enough, I can't make things happen, so I need to really condition myself to love myself. All of these ideas, these these things that when we put them to the test, they actually backfire on us. And so I created No Hype Allowed as kind of a healthy food stamp so that you would know when you get an idea on how to build your business or create or lead change, you have some ideas that are proven. They're field tested. They really work. That doesn't mean that the things I say on this show are gospel. I'm not saying that I'm so certain about my own answers that I have all the answers and I am the legend and so forth. I don't think I'm a guru at all. I'm not here to be a guru. What I am here to do is to ask you some questions that you probably would not ask yourself. I've been a performance coach for the last 13 years. I'm at 13,107 coaching sessions. I do 5 to 7 coaching sessions per day. So I just eat up the time alive talking to, observing, directing, holding accountable, kicking butt, being a professional nag, a secret weapon, a skillful prodder, somebody who says it like it is, an outside jerk. These are the names that I get called. Can you believe that? This is the stuff that people tell me I do. This is what they say that they need. They need the no-nonsense feedback from a coach. Because you know why? Because people in their life won't tell them the truth. That's why coaching's become such a helpful, popular service, is that most of the time, we're not getting the truth from our staff. We're not getting the truth from our partners, from our loved ones. We cannot see the full picture of what's going on, and we have to pay for that. We don't see how we show up because people have reasons not to tell us. They have counteractive loyalties, folks, to not tell you the truth. That's not a bad thing. It's just not the normal human condition to be uncomfortable unto the truth all the time, right? Your employees have other motivations than to tell you where to stick it, than telling you how you show up. They may not be as concerned about you as they could be. So what do you need? An outside person that will provide you a full, penetrating clarity on what's actually going on, while at the same time being able to really focus your thoughts to slow down and process what it is that you want to create. Most of the time we go into things with a very reactive orientation, right? We're bound to react to things that are going on. And throughout most of our life, as I've talked about on this show, we get conditioned into reacting and responding. And then life becomes a series of how do I react better, how do I respond better, how do I react better, how do I respond better, instead of focusing our actions toward that which we want to create. Isn't it great to know that no matter what the conditions are, whether they're tough, whether they're difficult, no matter what the range of conditions are, as an entrepreneur, you take your cues from that which you want to create. See, your desires are not born out of the current conditions. I'm not saying you should deny them. Yeah, you have certain conditions that are really screwy. You bet. All of us have conditions that we don't expect in our life, right? I'm sure there were moments where you said, I don't like this. Wow, I really feel threatened by this. Why did this happen to me? What's wrong with me? What's going on? And then we start feeling recklessly responsible. We start going to ourselves. We start kind of marrying our own stories about who we are or who we're not to what's going on. And this leads me into what today's show is about. Today's show is called Just Start. So we're going to look at the side of radical creativity from the side of the beginning of it all. America loves finishers, right? We actually put a superiority. We see finishers as elite. We love finishers. Finishers score. Finishers win points. But not all of us are geared to be finishers. We all have different preferences, different comfort zones, different styles, different ways of paying attention. And as I've said before on this show, I don't believe there is any recipe for success. That by virtue of what we create, what we bring into being, we learn. I don't think there's any other type of learning that there is. I mean, there's learning by doing. We can learn from the past, right? We can learn by virtue of our experiences, and we can change the process or change our methods and so forth. But the way entrepreneurs learn is very, very different than the traditional model for learning. They learn from the future as it is emerging. You see, they have a whole different way in which they sense something that's wanting to emerge, and they move with it. They create it. They bring it into being that's born out of nothing. What I love about entrepreneurs is they understand this ability to create, to be able to create from nothing. It's like starting to scratch a lottery ticket, and you don't really have anything yet, but you're scratching, until something starts to illuminate. Until something wakes them up, and they say, oh, I got an epiphany. Oh, wait, I got a great idea. Oh, right in the shower this morning, I got a great idea. Or as I was driving up the coast, man, I was really able to see what I want to create. So these moments of deep reflection, they don't come from inside the business. They don't come from all this activity. They come from the beingness. They come from the rest. They come from the relaxation. So a lot of emphasis we put on the finish. You know, there's that great saying that Jim Rohn says, begin with the end in mind. You know, we got to have an end in mind. And granted, yeah, a lot of us, when we start something, the creator has to germinate some kind of guiding idea, some kind of idea or picture that he seeks to create. But what I want to talk more about is the beginning, the start. Because what I'm noticing is people out there have all of these dreams, things they want to create, and they sit. And they don't do anything. And they never do anything about it. And they got a ton of reasons not to. And the conditions just weren't right. And I didn't have the money for it. And. I could count so many ands. I could count more ands than people on the earth. There's just too many reasons instead of results. Too many reasons, no results. Why do we come up with all of this? Where do all of these reasons start to come from? You know, we come up with all these reasons why I can't do it right now. I can't start. I can't do this. I can't do that. I can't do it because of this. As if there's this great timing about things. You know, I can't do what I love because I've got this. And one of those is all the obligations. You know, one of the things that we have to do is be responsible. We have to be a responsible parent. We have to be a responsible person. We have to pay our bills. We have to pay our mortgage. Hello, we all of us are responsible. Every one of us has responsibility. There's nobody who doesn't have responsibility. If you breathe and you're alive and you want to stay existing and you want to eat food, you have to do something. You have to turn something in. You have to turn in a performance. You have to give something in order to get it back. It's that kind of personal responsibility. Now, there are some that might say, well, yeah, I can live off the system. I'm not talking to those individuals. The people listening to the show are entrepreneurs. They operate by their own ideas, and what they do is born out of their own convictions. They're self-made people, you see. So what is it that causes this short-circuiting? Well, as I hear it, JD, how do I do this when I have so much responsibility? You know, I want to be a good husband. I don't want to let my family down. I've got to pay all these bills, and I don't want to have any episodes of no cash flow. When we look at it, there's an underlying concept. There's a mental construct that's fear that we might not make it, that we might have some famine, we might have some shortages. And you know what? We might. But if we don't take the risks, we don't have opportunity. You see, you got to take some risks to have opportunity. We need to become aware of the limitations these sort of counteractive goals that we start to set for ourselves. And the counteractive goals are the alternative fears, the competing commitments, these goals that undermine the more superior goals that we want to take claim. We want to declare those goals. We want to have the dominating goal, but we can't because we have this non-supportive goal. We want to make sure that we're responsible and so forth. Another reason that we don't start is we have to monetize everything that we love. It has to go through the filter of, I got to make money with it. Oh, I got to have money. I got to make money with it. I have to monetize it. And I'll find things that people absolutely love doing, but they won't do it. They won't start it because it has to go through that filter called, I got to make money with it, instead of just doing it for its own sake, right? But that's not good enough. I can't start because I've got to make sure I have some big fancy reason to start, because everybody who's going to hear what I'm doing has to be convinced too. Since I'm not convinced about it, no. I'm going to make sure that my dad, my mom, everyone around me who I think are my critics, my wife, my friends, I don't want to have them laugh at me. I don't want to fail, and I don't want to disappoint them, and I don't want to make them right about their doubts with me. So I got to make it sound really, really good. What I'm doing is really worthy of being listened to. And so we start to charbroil the story. We start to tarnish the reality of our true desires. We don't start because we sell out. We want to make sure that we get approved. We want to make sure that it's big news. We want to make sure that it commits itself to a social norm, that it feels normal rather than staying true to ourselves. It's so sad. It's so sad. How many times in your life have you thought of an idea, right? You stumbled upon it. You had an invention in mind. You went, oh, I see it. This is what I got to do. And you sensed something that wanted to emerge, and then that other voice started to come in. John, this is your voice of judgment. You know you can't do that. You've got to stay with what's familiar. Stay with the voice of the past. Don't disrupt what you know. Don't go outside of it. That's dangerous. Do not be an irresponsible person. John, don't do that. People will laugh at you. You could end up being a failure. You might be humiliated. You might be embarrassed. Right? That voice. It's like Freddy Krueger down in the dungeon that's coming up. And he's going, No. Don't even think about it. Why even try? Hey, the last time it didn't work. You got to get a bunch of money together to make that happen. You don't have you start coming up with all these reasons. And instead of looking at those reasons as leap-off points, as existing realities, you actually just charm yourself right out of what it is that you really want. You just lose the negotiation, right? Your voice of judgment comes in and just starts predicting the future and stomping all over it, and finally the flames are stomped out and all you have is smoke. Put those out. Why even try? I heard a person say the other day they were in a job interview and the employer said, hey, look, if we were here, it was 3 years from today. Tell me about it. What would that 3-year picture look like? What would you have in your life that would matter to you? And she looked over at him and said, well, I'll never have it, so I don't even want to express it to you. I'm at this job. I'm at my current job right now because I have to live in the real world. I can't live in my dream because I'll never have it. I'll never make money with it. I'll never be able to create it. How sad is that a person actually convinces themselves, rationalizes out, pushes out, edges out all the beauty of what their heart wants expressed, all the potential creativity that could be working with them, through them. They will never know that place that if they really took some chances, how attractive could that space be? See, something about great creators that I know is that when they leap off, when they start, they don't start when the conditions are right. They start wherever the constraints are. If we didn't have constraints, there would be no creating. Creating and constraints go together. Constraints are what liberate us to get creative. Constraints are what get us to think alternatively. See, when we don't start on things that we really want, we don't give our brain something really good to focus on. We focus on the normalities. We focus on the mundaneness. And then we do nutty things later. We don't become what we really love, or we don't take on the career we really want, or we don't contribute to the world the way we wanted to. And then we get kind of restless about it. And then we get blameful about it. And then it's everybody else's fault. And it's my husband's reason why he didn't let me, or it's my wife's reason why, oh man, it's because of her, or it's my kids, or it's all these things that we hold responsible for our inability to start. And it's really, really sad. So what are you holding on to What are you not starting that you're having arguments with yourself about? And you know it's in you, and it's been circling in you. It's been a whisper. Maybe it's become a hammer, a clanging hammer. You can't stop it. And you know you need to do it, and you know throughout your lifetime you're going to need to instill it somewhere. You're going to insert it somewhere, but you're just not doing it. You don't trust it. You don't trust it. You don't see what could happen if you did. You don't see that it would be safe. So we're going to get back to more as to why it is that you don't start and what you can do to get started on the most important things that you really, really need to focus on. And what kind of changes could come from things if you started on your dreams.
Having a life where you have the creative freedom to do what you love and to offer the world something that only you can bring to the table. That is the world of high-level performance with John Davidson. That is the world of radical creativity. That is the world that you can be a part of when you realize all that is holding you back is you. Begin the journey through one-on-one coaching that gives you the finesse for business and lifetime achievement, and find your place on the roadmap to high-level performance today. Visit highlevelperformance.com. What matters to me? What is my true work? Monetize your passion and enjoy creative freedom with the VIP Coach. You're listening to Radical Creativity with Executive Performance Coach John Davidson.
Woo! Radical creativity, folks. Just start. We're talking about moments in your life where you didn't. You stopped. You got cautious. Put that away. Don't think about it. You convinced yourself that it really shouldn't be done. You did the normal, you did the mundane, you sold out. You didn't do the thing that would have bypassed the norm. And there's that voice inside of you that says, oh, man, why didn't you do it? Come on, why don't you do it? See, there's something that creators know when they start something that's not perfect, when they just start from wherever they are, they know it's a game about ready, fire, aim. It's not ready, aim, fire. That's not how the creative process works. We have to prototype. We have to act in an instant and try things out. We throw the spaghetti up to the ceiling and we see what sticks. And until you're willing to step in there, you will never really see the vantage point needed to gather that next step because you're too busy staying safe. You're too busy being comfortable instead of creating things that matter to you. Or you're creating things that should matter, which is pretty much born out of the same thing. Whatever should matter is based on the past. That's not creating. That's recreating something that you know. But creating, in the essence of it, in the true definition, in the true spirit of creating, is originating something separate from what you know. So there is no qualifications on start. Certainly you may need to get certain training. Maybe you need to get certain equipment. Maybe you need to have certain resources. But that doesn't limit your decisiveness to start. Start also does not imply that things will work. Okay? It does not imply that you can have what you want. If I start on becoming a soprano singer, but I am a baritone by the wiring of me, I may never be a soprano, but that does not deny, that does not throw out the beauty and the benefit of knowing what I want. I find also that we get stuck in our concepts. We get stuck in, I really want this. JD, I really want a career working as a zoologist, or I really want to be a coach, or I want to create media solutions that reach out to the mixed martial arts community. These are some of the urges that I hear. I want to create all kinds of media. I want to expose the MMA community. I have someone I'm working with like that right now. And what we face is that we walk around with what we want, but we don't choose it. We say, I want it, but we don't declare it. We don't choose it. I mean, listen to this. I want to be a coach. I choose to be a coach. I want to go to Greece next year for 2 weeks. I choose to go to Greece for 2 weeks. You hear the difference? You do, don't you? You hear the difference between wanting something and choosing something. See, when you choose it, it has catalytic power. It suddenly mobilizes you. You've made a contract with your brain. You've said, look, I'm going to give you something more compelling to do. Now, when you sleep, I want you to figure this out. And while I'm awake, I want you to look for signs and signals that contribute, that give me access, that give me clearance to that. You see, I want to put your attention there, Mr. Brain. I want to give that bigger, more dominant business for you to do, Mr. Brain, instead of just focusing on what's always here, instead of kicking out the problems that I'm always facing, instead of handling all the stuff, all that stuff that's being imposed on me like a rat in a maze. See what it does? It shifts you fundamentally to a different orientation. Because when you start by making that choice. Even before you choose the subject matter, fundamentally, you choose to become a predominant creative force in your life. You choose to. You choose to become a predominantly creative force in your life. When you do that, you are implying that the circumstances don't need to be right, that the causal force of your actions is unto that which you want to create. So there are no right timings to things. You just choose to. I'm not suggesting you can have anything. This is not what I'm saying. I'm not suggesting that everything is in abundance and all that stuff. You still have to look at reality. But see, we need to convert reasons for not having it into existing realities from which you can structure your actions. So, for example, if I say to myself, well, I don't have any money, why don't I identify the current level of money that I have? See, if I say to myself, well, I don't have that, or if I say I don't have any time, which is not a true statement, I can identify where my priorities are and where my focus currently is. I can look at my calendar. I can look at existing states rather than reasons that shut me down. I need a starting point. And this is not easy, folks, because we are not trained to look at the truth. We don't want to look at the truth. It's ugly. We're afraid of what we might find out. What will we find out about ourselves? We might be discouraged. We don't want to look at the truth. So you know what we do to start? We set realistic and attainable goals. Yeah, that's what we do. And you hear it all the time. It's really popular. You got to be practical. Set realistic and attainable goals. Yeah, when you look at that, listen to what the source from which you are creating the goal is. What's the source? The source is the past. See, there's something you know that says, I'm tentative about setting a big, hairy goal. But what I'm suggesting you do is it's not about the size of the goal. It's not about being practical or realistic. It's about what it does to you. Does it matter enough for you to bring it into being? Number one. Number two, is it clear enough to where you could take a next step or action? It only needs to be clear so that you'd recognize it if it existed. I love hearing all these stories about, well, the more clear you are, the more probability of success. That's bullshit. Most of the stuff that you start on creating, the clarity is emergent. It builds over time. You add on to it. You accessorize your levels of clarity. You just have ample clarity to start. So take the heat off of yourself. You don't need this extraordinary clarity. Most of the clarity you have is about to change anyway. The middle and the end game of what you're about to do is going to change. When you start off playing chess, when you leap off a match, you don't need piercing clarity about how the whole game is going to go. You just have to be ready for anything and expect nothing and make your moves as the game emerges. Because you don't know in the flux of things what the other player, hence reality, is going to respond with. But you can be ready. You can inhabit that moment courageously. You can work with what's there. You can stand up to it. You can face it. And you will know what to do at that time. In my own creative process, there is a period where there's not a lot happening. You know, there's a lot of things I'm creating. I have certain expectations about them. Of course, that's from the past. I compare it to what other similar situations or what other people have done, and I say, well, this is what's supposed to happen. And I start to lay that over what's going on. And that's a source of suffering and disappointment. But my awareness says, wait a second, I can outsmart that. I got to look at what's really going on. You know what? I expected to finish this book in 6 months, but I'm now at 3 years. And I'm not going to think about why it took me 3 years. It's just what the book needed to come into being. Giving the creation the time allowed. It doesn't have to work within your limits. It doesn't have to always be within your expectations. Because to oxygenate your creations, it may require more of what the creation tells you it needs to bring it into itself, to bring it into being. And that's that period of assimilation. of letting go of any expectations and just moving into it. And the process is so much its own reward. I think I got more out of the process of learning by creating the book than the book itself, than the book actually coming into a terminal point and finishing. I learned so much by creating that book. I became a different person by creating that book. That if I were to examine why I created, it's really that. I was so involved in the process. When I went into my second book, I chose to start. And I started messy. You start messy. Not every time. Sometimes you may have a clear roadmap, sometimes not, right? But it's okay to start messy. And things start to coalesce. And you begin to connect the dots. And as you jump into it with full feet, all these unforeseen forces start to come to your aid. Just the right people start coming into form. Just the right resources are there just as you step forward. But you step forward with full conviction without knowing. You realize that it's only a trick to assume you know, because you really don't. You haven't created it yet. So to say to yourself, well, I really believe I can do it, that's my condition to start. No, you don't. You don't believe you can do it. What can you believe in when you haven't created it yet? It's a hoax. That's right. You're looking for the big magic boot, right? You're looking to make sure the ground is clear. It's okay. Hey, the coast is clear. There's nothing's going to happen to me, right? I'm going to run through this minefield unscathed. Nothing's going to happen to me. You bet. A lot of things are going to happen to you. But above what happens to you is the subject matter that you're seeking to create. It's like locking onto it with a plane. You're locking onto that target. Now, you may waver your angle. You may waver your line of sight. You may not go in a straight line. There may be all kinds of existing obstacles that the universe came in with. Who knows? But your job isn't to prevent those obstacles. Your job isn't so much to outsmart those obstacles. Your job is to be ready and fully present and to use them as teachers and pivots and to make strategic adjustments. Because the moment you compare those existing realities to what it is that you want to create, that's when learning happens. That's when you assimilate. That's when you acquire something that you didn't have before. You see? So every creation that you create, there's nothing generic about it. It's its own unique process. It's its own unique little universe. Like the books I created, everything that was needed to create those books was born out of the process of trial, error, experimentation. So before we start, we got to go look for the answers, right? We got to go find out all the best practices because we don't want to trust our own answers. And we make this assumption, it's going to take me so much longer. Why reinvent the wheel? I agree. I think you should have some convention. But the invention of trial, the invention of trusting your ideas is where you authenticate something to come into being that is unlike anything else. Geniuses are not copycats. Sure, they may have a method. They may bring over the method from the previous creation because it created a platform for being more intelligent and ready in the next one. You build up momentum. But it also requires keeping that into perspective, keeping our facts, F-A-C-T-S, at bay. And knowing that everything that we know moving into the next moment is just a function of what we assume to be true. It's not a function of fact. You have a lot of experience. You don't have a lot of answers. So you enter with a fresh mind. You enter with a beginner's mind, as they say in Zen. You empty out. You enter with a mind freshly that is dead, that has died on its habitual ways of judging, its habitual ways and conditioning of thinking. How do we initiate that dying process? We don't. The dying process is organic at the feet of what we choose to create. See, the moment that we choose predominantly to be a creative force in our life, we really don't need to stop and purge and fix our issues and clean up our crap. We don't have anything needed to clean up. It's not relevant to the creative process. We don't need to go through a bunch of fixing our quirks and cleaning ourselves up and getting our psychological mess in place and getting ourselves into a Rembrandt-type thinking and so forth. That's great because it sells workshops and it's great human potential ideas and New Age movement and so forth. But what it does is it makes us so inwardly focused on ourselves that we lose our sense of orientation on the subject matter that we're looking to create. So if we try to put ourselves together before we deserve or before we earn the creations we create, that's not going to help. We also may think that our self-esteem is linked to what we want to create, that we have to deserve everything before we actually cause it to exist. As if we have to owe something to ourselves in order to sustain it. Good karma. We have to do something in order to keep that. We have to do something. And it's very guilt-driven. So we have to do all these things. We set up all these rituals, all these obstacles for ourselves, just out of that thought, I have to deserve what I desire. What if you didn't have to deserve what you desire? The truth is, desire is just born out of desire itself. Right? You didn't need to deserve to enjoy driving your car. You didn't need to deserve creating a cake tonight. You didn't need to deserve creating a fantastic relationship. You didn't need to deserve anything. You just create it for its own sake. You want it because you want it. There is nothing else. You want to see it exist? That's good enough. So I want you to write down an inventory of all of the things that you have been putting off, all the elements that you haven't started. And then right next to it, I want you to write down a reason that you haven't started it. And next to that, I want you to write down an existing reality. In other words, convert that reason into an actual honesty about what exists. Convert it into an existing condition rather than a silly reason. So if you've got reasons not to, you don't have the time, or you have children, or you have responsibilities, write down a description of that. You do. It doesn't mean that you deny that. You just have a much more intimate closeness without opinion about what you actually have. And that's very liberating because you get to see where you actually are. And when you balance that, when you differ that from what you want to create, guess what your mind does? Is it goes to another level. It goes, you're really calling on me here for something. I got to think about this. I got to figure out a way to move this along. I got to figure out a way to take the current conditions and move them ahead towards the desired ones. Thank you for my assignment. Promise me that you'll do it. Promise me that you'll do it. So this show was about just getting started. It's not about the finish. It's about leaping off and getting started. That's really the key piece, because if you don't have any starts, you're not going to have any finishes. Anything that you don't start doesn't have a finish. So why be thinking about the finish? Just start. Start from here. Start with all the bugs. You'd be far, far better to start something and work along the way than to wait and make it perfect to get started, because someone else is going to get started before you. We have a coaching program called the VIP Coach. You can find us online at highlevelperformance.com. That's highlevelperformance.com, highlevelperformance.com. Our phone number at the office in Huntington Beach, California is 714-375-6624. To qualify for our unique coaching program, you must be over 32 years old, have at least 3 to 5 years experience as an entrepreneur, being in charge of your own security. You are in the service business, not the product business. You have earned over $250,000 in income after taxes. You are coachable. You see the benefit of teamwork and collaboration, and you are comfortable with your own ignorance. Having a coach is one of the greatest gifts that you can give yourself. So I encourage you to give us a call or look us up online and apply for the VIP Coach. About 42% of applicants who apply actually get accepted. Thank you very much. I look forward to visiting again on Radical Creativity. Really appreciate your loyalty and staying with our show. Take care.
For more tools on how to liberate your gifts, become more valuable, and on purpose through radical creativity with executive performance coach John Davidson, visit highlevelperformance.com and be sure to follow John on Facebook. Check back soon to continue the journey toward radical creativity.